Okay, good day class. Once again, since it's the foundation week, I decided na mag-pre-record na lang ako ng class natin instead of us having a class tomorrow morning so that you can enjoy the program, the live program tomorrow. But still, it's your responsibility to view the pre-recorded class. I will be uploading it on YouTube. I'll be giving you the link via MS Teams. And then after watching the video, you can proceed with answering the provided quiz on Quipper. And then you can review the contents of the class or the subject or the topic, via YouTube. Again, I'll be sending you the link, as well as you can also review it via PPT. So again, for this week, mag-record lang ta, and then next week we will have our formal classes again. Okay? So I will be reiterating it. It's your responsibility to look at the video. And then before I start, let me just remind you that I will also be uploading the 2 quizzes for chapter 1 and for this chapter 2, tomorrow, or rather by the time that you're watching this today, February 22, until next week, Monday. Again, if you're not included already, or if you are not yet inside the Quipper class, then you are not permitted to take the quiz. Therefore, you are considered 0 by the 2 sa duha ka quizzes. So again, I have been saying it for how many times? I think 2 weeks or 3. I think 2 weeks already to come in the Quipper class. And if still wala gyapon mo nagsulod, then it's already your problem. Okay? That you have to fix. And you have to, again, bawi na lang mo next time. Okay? But with that being said, let's continue with the lesson at hand. Our lesson for today is about accounting concepts and principles. So the objectives are very simple. You will just define GAAP, or define the generally accepted accounting principles, and know and appreciate the basic accounting principles and used rather in the practice of accounting. Okay? So first, let's define accounting. I think we already defined it in chapter 1, but again, let's define it in a different manner. So according to the American Accounting Association, accounting refers to the process of identifying, measuring, and communicating economic information to permit informed judgments. Again, all of the economic information, or in the case that we are in our case, we are using financial information, financial transaction. In accounting, we have to identify it. It's not just by identifying, we also have to measure, again, via pesos, of course, and understanding the process and the financial information at hand. Of course, and after that, we have to permit, or rather, we have to inform the users of the information, may it be internal or external, owners of the company, customers, consumers, or employees or managers, the judgments that they have to, the judgments in terms of the situation, financial situation of their company. So again, to permit informed judgments and decisions by the users of the company. So in short, accounting, or accountants rather, they are like they interpret the financial data that owners or users of the information cannot understand. So it's up to you to translate it. Okay? So of course, and in every profession, there has to be principles or rules that they have to follow. In the case of accountants or CPAs in the Philippines, they follow the GAAP, or the generally accepted accounting principles. These are very broad, very general statements or rules. You can also consider them as procedures that serve as their guide if you will become CPA in the future in the practice of accounting. Just like mga police, mga teachers, mga doctors, they always have to follow some kind of conduct or some kind of some rules, dili pwede na i-abuse nilang power. Of course, principles are there, or rather rules are there in order for them to at least regulate their power, no? Same with accountants. Hindi pwede na just because they have the capacity to interpret financial data, they can use it for their own gain, no? At the end of the day, you are doing a service to other people, no? For the benefit of your users. For example, for the owners, not for your own benefit, no? Again, there has to be an established standard, no? Assumptions and concepts with general acceptability, meaning almost everyone, no, or kung pwede everyone, no, in the practice of accounting should accept these assumptions or these standards that are given, no. So GAAP is also a measuring technique, no, used in the presentation and the preparation of financial statements, because there will be cases where you might be lost in terms of interpreting financial information. So if you get lost, you can always go back to the principles, the basic principles of accounting, or the generally accepted accounting principles, in order for you to understand or at least know how to again interpret the data, the financial data, you know? So of course you have to use an accounting system. So what's an accounting system? It comprises the methods used by a business to keep records of the financial activities. So right now, nowadays, no, after you graduate, if you become CPAs, usually what they do is they don't really manually do everything already. There is already an accounting system that will provide a platform, or at least a blueprint already of the things that you will do. So it's like a summary already of the things that you have to do. Depende sa what kind of what do you call this? What kind of business or corporation you are in? If you're in manufacturing, if you're in merchandising, or if you are in the service industry, or if you are in agriculture, they have different kinds of accounting systems that they follow. So in short, kuan lang, what do you call this? System lang siya. Very basic system that accountants have to follow. They usually pay for it already. It's already there, no? It's already tried and tested, no? And of course, whenever there are financial transaction or there is financial data, there is also a transaction. So what's a transaction? It's a completed action which can be expressed in monetary terms. So in this case, again, it can be interpreted in Philippine pesos. Diri sa ato ang in the context of our of where we are living, di ba? Kung dito ka nag-practice of accounting in outside the country, you just have to follow the monetary value that they have there as well, no? So very simple. So tayo makabaligya ka, your sales in terms of pesos, of course, even if it's sold outside, or rather we sold it outside our country, kung tayo nag-ship ka og item kay nakabaligya ka from a customer outside, you still have to express it in your monetary terms. Dili pwede na lahi-lahi Philippine pesos and in US dollars. Dapat na dyan na universal na ginagamit, which is one thing that we will be talking about later, about the principles, no? So let's talk about the fundamental concepts first. So the very first concept that we will be talking about is the entity concept. Always remember, we already talked about this last time as well in last semester. When you talk about the entity concept, you have to regard your business enterprise, your corporation, or your business whether it is an SME or a small or medium enterprise or a very big corporation, whatever it may be, as distinct and separate from the owners and from other business enterprises. So you have to treat it like a separate entity. Murag tao gyapon siya. For example, when a corporation wants to buy something, it can be named sa corporation itself, not the owner lang, no? When pwede po nimo siya kasuhan based sa iyahang sariling sa company itself, not just the manager of the company or whatever it is, no? Kung tahay na nagbenta sa imuha ang McDonald's na isa ka branch o kuan o guba or double dead na manok, then dili man nimo kailangan necessarily file and case ang katong manager dito or ang employee dito. You can actually sue the corporation itself, because again, you have to really treat it as a separate entity. Even when you open up an account in a bank account, you can actually name it sa business. Again, entity concept. You have to always treat your company separately from your own. So when you have your personal transactions, kung tahay naglaag mo outside, or you want to have a vacation, personal vacation, dili ni mo na siya i-record sa imuhang business transactions, because that's also separate from your entity, no? But kung tahay na transportation expense kay nag-team building in yung company, you can consider it rather as a part of the entity. Therefore, pwede na mo siya ibutang sa imong business transaction. Nagpakaon kay tao, nga na good. Pero kung tayo, palit kag burger, naglaag mo sa imong, sa imong pamilya, niya, nagkaon mo outside, di na mo na siya consider. Sir, what about if I will be using the company or the money of the company? Pwede. As withdrawals na siya always, no? So you don't have to specify what you spent sa imong money, di ba? You can always just say again na nag-withdraw lang ka, and that's it. For personal use, you also have the right ikaw man tagiya sa business. So as long as kato lang po na part, whatever you use with that money, you don't really have to specify, no? So again, that's how the entity concept is, no? Next is periodicity. When you talk about periodicity, the concept of periodicity, it means that you have to provide financial accounting information, no, for specified time periods. No? When you create or when you write down or you jot down business transactions, when you debit and credit, when you create journal entries, there should always be a date, no? Specified time period yun na siya. Kung sa January 1 mo nagipalit, di mo na siya i-record on January 5, or if gi-record man mo siya on January 5, you have to record it based on when the transaction happened. There should again always be a specific time period. In this case, when you create financial statements, kanang kumbaga dagko na financial information sa mong business, there should be a specific period that should be announced. For example, usually annual na siya ang na monthly, na annual, but usually you should create an annual accounting period. 1 year is usually considered an accounting period. Sir, what if wala ko nag-start by January? Okay lang ba? Yes, actually pwede siya, because there are two classifications of periodicity. You can write down your financial information basically as calendar year, no? Where it's a 12-month period, no? You usually start on January 1 and then you end on December 31. And then, the very first day of the year, January 1, is considered as your very first day of the accounting cycle or the accounting year. No? And then, it ends on the last day, which is December 31. But that's not always the case, because there are businesses that always, or rather, that start not on January, or they want to at least have a different starting period. Depende sa kind of business that they have. Kung tahay, sorry class, kung tahay na peak year nila on March and they want to start their accounting cycle on a high note, so pwede na siya na sa March nila i-start ang ilang accounting year. Tawag na kay fiscal year. It's a 12-month period that starts it starts on any month of the year other than January, no? For example, March will start, April or November after the starting period, and ends rather 12 months after the starting period. So if kung tayo mag-start on November, you end on October. Very simple, no? That's just the difference between calendar and fiscal years. So a natural business year is any 12-month period that ends when your business activities are at their lowest points. Usually by the end of the year, nagahinay na siya ang inyuhang, what do you call this, dagan sa financial transactions, because the year is ending already. But of course, it's not always the case. It always depends on what kind of business that you have. Kay dagan naman yung mga business or naman mga business na ang nature nila mas kusog siya sa end of the year rather than the start of the year or in the middle of the year. So ana na siya. Okay? So the next what do you call this concept, no, is the concept is going concern. Very simple as well. It's a concept which assumes that the business enterprise will continue to operate indefinitely. Sa Bisaya pa, pag okay, pag goods ang imong business, walay mali, no? Okay siya, it can still function or it can still survive in the coming 5, 6, 7 years, usually 5 to 10 years, then your business is considered as going concern. So for example, you're the accountant. Unya, si owner of the business, nagangayo og financial advisor, accounting advisor imuha. Because dili sila sure if by the coming 2 to 3 to 4 years, kaya pa mag-operate silang business. So, of course, that's your job right now as the management accountant or the external accountant, whatever your title is, to check if going concern ba ang business. For example, okay pa man based on the projection of your sales or your net income or the capital that you have in the previous 5 years, by the next 2 to 3 years, kaya pa. Unless na ay mga like for example, nag-COVID, or na mga dagkong catastrophe na hitabo, nag-drought, nag-major drought or whatever, then you can consider your business as going concern. But for example, based on the projection of your business, based on your the previous 5 years of your, of the cycle of your business, medyo nagababa ang trajectory niya, maybe by the next 5 to 6 years, it will not be going concern. So again, because you have already considered or you have already informed the owner of the business, you have already done your job. Not necessarily na ikaw na ang mag-decide na ipadayon or dili. It's up to the business owner kung iundang niya yung negosyo or mangita siya pamaagi na mag-change ang financial trajectory sa iyang business or something like that, no? But again, more ng purpose sa going concern. You just have to let the owner or the user of the financial information understand na their business will still operate indefinitely. When you say indefinitely, there's no certain amount of time that it will end. No, indefinite, dili sure. But it doesn't really say na, it doesn't really mean that it's negative, diba? It just means na continue lang, padayon lang. There's no really general, of course, because when you want to project something, it's at the end of the day, these are just projections. Dili man dyan mo maingon na sure jud siya, no? But again, the word indefinite there means that there's a positive, it's a positive connotation that might suggest that the business will operate for a very long time. Ana lang. Okay? So let's continue with the basic accounting principles. So what are the basic accounting principles? Ayan. So the basic accounting principles, let's start with the very first one. Again, before I continue, if you have any questions, you can just, while you're watching this, you can just chat me anytime. No problem. Okay? So, objectivity principle, very first one. The objectivity principle states that all business transactions that will be entered in the accounting records must always be duly supported by verifiable evidence. What does that mean? Whenever you create a business transaction, there should always be proof. Ana lang, kadali class. Kung tayo, when I will say, or the owner of the business, or rather, kung tayo nagbantay sa tindahan, nag-ingon na may nagpalit diri og 5 sako na bugas diri sa ganina buntag, dili ka pwede na mag-ingon na tinuod do siya unless na ay proof. And usually, what is the proof that is used in sa business? Receipts. Mga mo na, official receipts or kanang normal receipts. As long as there's a receipt, no, or a record, no, financial record, then you are already practicing the very first principle, which is the objectivity principle. Pag walay resibo, kung saan man nimo pag-verify na kanang transaction kay tinuod siya or dili siya tinuod. What if giatik ra din na si mong nagbantay diya sa mong negosyo nimo siya na ibaligya diri kuan tulo ka sako na ay nagpalit day rather og tulo ka sako ng bugas. Unya tinuod kay di 5, iya ding ikupit. No. Gihatag lang niya katong 3 kilos ay 3 sacks worth. So there should always again be proof. And again, it's not only limited to papers or receipts. Pabutang ka sa CCTV dira. No, that's already another backup, no. But again, the very important thing ang ginapangayo usually ana sa auditor whenever they want to ask something is pwede ko patanaw sa receipt. When was the date, no? Mo na again going back to the periodicity naman na dates na, di ba? Next is the historical cost. In the principle of historical cost, all properties and services, no, acquired, not acquire, mali na siya, sorry, by the business must be recorded at their original acquisition cost. What does that mean? Sa date na imo nang gi-purchase or gi-sell na ang isa ka product or isa ka asset, you should always record it sa imong journal entries sa iyahang original na price. For example, there is land bought in 2001 for 2 million pesos. The current value is 3 million pesos. Sa imuhang financial records or sa imuhang journal entries, dili ka mag-record og 3 million pesos dira. Mag-record ka og 2 million pesos because mao man ang value or that's the value of the land when you bought it. You can always adjust it after the, like for example, 2001, like 2020 na or 2015 na, you can just add another journal entry to add to your asset, no? Nag-appreciate ang land, ana. So dungagan lang nimo og value ang land. Credit lang ka og something that can counteract your increase of your asset. Pero in short, tanan nimo ginapalit or ginabenta, kung kaunsa to siyang date na nahitabo, no, it should always be based on your original acquisition, purchase, or cost. Okay? As simple as that. No? Next, accrual principle. The income should be recognized at the time it is earned, such as when goods are delivered or when services have been rendered. To simply put it, when we say accrual, we only record something if it's already earned or it's already rendered. Kung dahay, nagbayad siya daan, no? Nag-advancement of payment siya. Kay na ngayo siya og legal advice imo, you're an attorney. And then nagbayad siya on January 1. Dili nimo na i-record dira na nag-render kag service on January 1. Kung ang sabot ninyo, let's say, is 2 months, on March pa mo, maghatag og, or ikaw, nag-ingon ka na March pa ko makahatag og legal advice mo, kay medyo dagan may clients, then you have to record the services that you will be rendering on March, dili sa katong panahon na nagbayad siya. Again, when you have earned the service, or when you have earned the good rather, or you have rendered the service, then you will recognize it as such in the, but for now, kung tayo on the day January, butang na kadira na nagbayad siya, you will credit cash and you will debit advancements of payment, no, advance payments, no? Or mao na siya, usually advancement of payments. Dili siya pwede na butang kanila na nahatag na akong item, kung tayo nagpalit siya og kung tayo merchandising mo, nagpalit siya og 10 kilos of rather 10 pieces na table, 10 tables, no, daghan siya gipalit sa iyang kay na siya opisina, and then nagbayad siya on February 5, no? Dili nimo pwede dira, pero nag-ana ka na, medyo daghan sir, himuon pa namo ni tanan, mahatag namo ni by April, dili ka pwede dira nagbutang na nakabaligya ka og table February 15. Tama ba to? February 15 ba kung ingon? Then, dito pa ka sa April mo butang. Pero, pwede ka magbutang dira na imuhang nabaligya na siya. Nag-advancement lang or naghatag nag-cash daan ang imuhang client. Again, always recognize at the time it is earned rather than when it is paid. No? Wanang accrual principle. When it is accrued already, you will recognize it. Expenses as well is that like that, no, or deferrals. Expenses should be recognized at the time they are incurred as well, no. For example, nagpalit ka og equip or rather office supplies, di ba na nimo gamiton dayon, ang tawagan na unused supplies, no. You have to debit or rather you have to record it as unused supplies, but the moment na imuha na siyang gamit, no, you have to recognize right now na nagamit na ang office supplies. Butang nakadira na supplies or office supplies expense. Dili ka pwede magbutang dira og January 1 supplies expense kay wala pa man nimo gigamit. It's the same with rent as well. For example, nagbayad ka daan rather o renta sa imuhang commercial bit nagrenta ka og commercial lot unya nagrenta ka worth for the nag-advance kag payment for the month. Dili po ka pwede dira magbutang og rent expense immediately. Kung tayo ang deadline is kuan ang end of payment ay rather the deadline of payment is February 28. February 2 nibayad na kadaan, let's say 5,000. Dili na nimo pwede ibutang actually na expense siya diretso. Pwede ka mubutang prepaid rent. Gibayran lang nimo siya daan. Pero the moment na render na nimo na siya, na incur na nimo or na human na ng span na sa imong rent class, then you can already write it down as rent expense sa imuhang journal entries. Kay wala pa man nimo na siya again na earn. The expense has not been incurred yet. No, dili ka pwede kay what if moabot si February 28 na doble na imong rent expense sa gibutang kag rent expense on February 2, ibutang po kag rent expense on February 28, which is not allowed kay mag double entry na siya. So dili na mabalanse ang imuhang financial statements pag journal pag nimo pag record nimo. So again, only write expenses or profit or professional fees or service revenue when you have earned it, as well as expenses, no? Mura ra naghatag og bill sa imo sa kuryente. Di ba mabutang dira na expenses na dayon kay wala nimo nabayaran. Gihatag lang man na sa inyo ang bill to recognize that there is payment to be made. Pero the moment you will be paying for the utilities expense, like for example nagbayad ka og kuryente or nagbayad ka og internet, then you can write it down already na expense siya. Okay? That's the accrual principle. I know it might sound confusing maybe. Okay, there's no prior knowledge in terms of sa inyo kay bag-o man itanan. But again, you can always just review the video again and again. You can search online or you can ask questions naman. Okay? So let's move on with adequate disclosure. When you talk about adequate disclosure, when you talk about disclose, ipagawas, ipakita, no? So in accounting, all material facts that will significantly affect the financial statements must be indicated. Bisaya pa, ayaw diya pagtago-tago, ipakita tanan, no? Tanan dira na transactions, financial transactions, dili na pwede itago. That's why with businesses here in the Philippines, especially if it's there's a certain amount of capital that they have, no, for I'm not particularly sure, let's say 3 million to 5 million, pero pag medyo dako ang ilang income, na annual income, you can actually go to DTI and ask for their financial statements. Kaya again, tanan na financial statements kas pag pangayoon na sa tao, minsan pag gamayng bata pa na, di na pwede nimo ingnan na dili ka pwede mo tan-aw, dapat disclosed na, illegal na dili ipakita, no? Mao na isa ka principle sa accounting. Especially if you're an accountant, when you will ask the owner of the business, pwede na ko makit-an tanan, kana. Then dapat ipakita po sa owner. At the same time, pag naa kay makita na problema dira sa ilahang sa ilang financial information, dili nimo taguon kay makonsensya ka basi pag iingon ako ni manluod ni siya or pag maingon ako ni kay dili na ko niya kuwaon balik kay pangit ako nakit-an sa iyang dili siya magdugay ang negosyo. So dili na ko iingon na lang. Mao na ang tendency no, may humanitarian na mga aspects ba. But you have to understand that objectivity in terms of pag-abot sa finances is extremely important, no. Wala na yung sa luoy-luoy. Feel niyo na mao na ang dapat ipakita na, no. Ana pod. So, mo nang adequate disclosure, you always have to show the facts, no? All material facts should be seen, no? Sa users, to the accountant, from the accountant as well to the users, no? So, mao natay auditors, di ba? Because they will be investigating if ang imong gina-disclose na act na na financial information kay tama ba siya or dili, or na ba kay ginatago dira or dili, no? Such is the case with so many issues in the news, no, in terms of ang kanina blank kani si Department of Blank, si blank kana whatever diyan na mga from the government or private institutions ngano na ay anomalies in terms of their kay mo pa dito pa na audit, dito pa nakit-an. So mo na kay wala man sila nag-practice og adequate disclosure. Ang ilang gihimo man kay ilaman ang na-term man na it's called kiting or kuan ka you nagamalpractice ka or something. So they are, everyone is fully aware, especially if you're an accountant, you are already fully aware of what's happening. It's just that nagamalpractice lang yun ka. But again, you should again do adequate disclosure. No? Like for example, land bought at 2 million pesos in 2001 should be recorded immediately. No? So, dili na pwede na wala ko ipalit na yuta. Nga na. No? Amot sa nina dira, that's not mine. Or mali ang record na kabutang dira. No? However, the current value or the current market value of 3 million pesos rather in the year 2016 may be indicated in the financial statements for the year 2016 in the form of a footnote. For example as well, nagpalit ka og land that is bought at 2 million pero mag-appreciate man yun ang value usually sa land labaw na pag gwapo ang area niya, di ba? Let's say nag 5 million na siya. Dili mo na itago sa imuhang financial data na nakuha na siya na 2 million lang na siya period na wala siya nag-increase ang iyang value. You always have to indicate it, no? Even if naka-footnote lang na siya or notes from or notes from the blank, notes from accountant, notes from whatever. There should always be notes. Again, disclose yun na tanan. Bawal magtago. Illegal man na siya. Pwede man katanggalan og lisensya na. Naputay tawag na materiality. So in financial reporting, no, it's only considered with information significant enough to affect decisions. Whereas muingon man ta that there should be adequate disclosure, pero it's the common sense of the accountant as well or in the finance department to understand na dili man jud necessarily sa pinakagamay na transaction or let's say na gamay na purchase or kay ibutang pud nimo. Like for example, nagpalit kag maruya kay nagpakagamit kag kwarta sa imong sa kuan, let's say sa office, no? Cash on hand sa business. Nagpakaon ka sa mga employees. Di man na pwede necessarily na kailangan dyan ibutang nimo dira as maruya expense or nagpapalit ka dira og juice or coke. Naaman tay mga alternatives for that. Like for example, mag-create na kadaan og budget, petty cash fund. Magana ka. Mag-create na kag petty cash fund, mag-create na kag office budget when you have to, buy food, mga ginagbay lang good. Dili nimo kailangan na ibutang tanan, no? You don't have to really specify everything, especially if it's not of relative importance, no, to an item or an event. No, going back ka to, nagpa-snacks lang ka, ikaw ang tagias negosyo niya, nakay 5 ka empleyado sa inyong opisina. Kunya, namoy 5,000 dira, no? Pwede nimo ibutang dira na petty cash fund siya, gamiton siya for the office as kanang ginagmay na pagkaon diri, pwede nimo gamiton as pangtapal kung na short, no, or pang pamasahe ana. Pero dili nimo kailangan i-record dira na mao ni ang gihimo ani sa petty cash fund, mao ni ibutang nimo, no. Okay na ng resibo, no. Pero in the accounting records, in the journal entries, dili nimo kailangan isa-isahon tayo size. Butang ka nila 30 pesos, 6 times 5, 5x na maruya. Dili na kailangan niya na. You can write there already petty cash fund. Kung mahurot, butang ka lang nimo balik. Ana lang, no? An item is considered significant if knowledge of it would influence prudent users of the financial statements. If kutahay ni palit kag maruya pero wala kay significant effect sa wala na hugno yung kalibutan inyong business dito or whatever, pero nag-create naman po mo petty cash fund, okay lang, no, not necessarily. Pero kung tayo tungod kay ni palit ka atong maruya, no, kay mag-retrenchment na mo, may nga na butang uwi na kayo, pero what if lang, di ba, tungod kay na wadaan ko 500 nila, no, nagkagubot ang then dira na mo gawas ang concept of materiality or the concept of materiality na if you're an accountant or if you're the record keeper, the bookkeeper, you always have to ask yourself, no, is this transaction relatively important or influential? Feeling mo dili, then dili. Pero of course, it's always the what do you call this, the responsibility of the accountant to tell the owner of the business na, sir, para sa ako ano dyan na there is significant influence pag kanina transactions akong ibutang. Pag mo ingon ang business owner na sige go, or mo siya dili, then you have to understand, or at the end of the day si business owner dyan ang magkuhan. Pero of course kung feel niya na importante niya para sa imo dili, wala po kay choice, ibutang dyan mo na. Now, if it's very meticulous ang owner of the business, you have to of course respect the wishes or the managerial wishes of the owner. At the end of the day, executive decisions will always be on top. So, ano na siya. So, items of insignificant amount, like for example, palit kag paper clips ka na, may nga na. You can already write it down as office supplies expense. No? Di na kailangan paper clips expense or pencil expense or whatever. Or nahurot ang ano ninyo, ang unod sa inyong water dispenser, but na water expense or whatever. Na budget na tanan, no? There's later in the coming sessions natay tawag na chart of accounts, no, gamito na sa accountant na dira tanang description sa kailangan niya isulat, di na kailangan magdungag-dungag pa, nanay codex kumbaga. So let's continue. I think this is the last one, consistency. So of course the very basic, no, approaches used in reporting or in accounting, no, when you're reporting financial statements, must always be uniformly employed from period to period to allow comparison of the results between the time periods. No? What does that mean? It simply means na, for example, I will be using the fiscal method or fiscal year in 2022. The start of my accounting cycle or annual accounting cycle will be on March. On 2023, obviously, dapat March po ko 2023. 2024, March po ko. So, there's consistency on how I will use the concepts and principles, di ba, at hand. Kung dapat January po ko mag-start, January po. Kung tahay, practice na sa inyong business or sa inyong office na mag-create mo, or rather na wala mo yung petty cash fund, then you don't have to write down a petty cash fund journal entry there. So, unless or naay advice sa owner of the business na kailangan magbutang. Kung unsay practice dapat sa inyong business, rather sa inyong whatever it may be, corporation or sole proprietorship na siya, always yun na siya na a form of consistency. Kaya kung imuha ng what's the reason, no? Any changes must, of course, if there are changes, dapat na explanation. Dapat na footnotes. Na dyan na notes always. Para makabalo si accountant o si owner of the business na mo din ibagbago. What is the main purpose for this? Of course, you always have to create a comparison between different periods, di ba? Period 1, period 2, 2001, 2002, even quarterly or monthly. Kung dili na siya consistent, if you're not using the same kind of journal entries, the same kind of titles, tanan na, kung dili na parehas tanan class, then unsaon nimo pag-create og accurate na comparative results or comparison sa imuhang previous accounting cycles. Going back, no, it will take effect sa tanan nimo concepts and principles. Like for example, if you want to understand or if you want to know if going concern ang imuhang business, how will you find out that it really is going concern if the financial data that is rather, like for example, the periodicity there is inconsistent, no? Dili mo magamit ang first year nimo na accounting cycle kay 10 months lang, no? Ang annual ang isa nimo kulang pa jud 1 month, 11 months or 8 months lang. Nya nag-trip lang ka, which is of course not advisable kay usually si pangayoon man jud ana is 1 year man jud, di ba? So, nga na dapat, you have to always be consistent. Even when using simple accounting entries. Like, for example, ang ginagamit ninyo na ginalista ninyo rather for, what do you call this? For expenses sa inyong kuryente kay electricity expense. Dapat, from 2001 to 2021 to 2031, electricity expense yun na unless there is a clear explanation why there is a change on the certain expense. Kung mubutang kag electricity expense dira sa January, unya pag abot diya sa November nagbutang ka dira og utilities expense, unsaon nimo pag-classify kung utility siya or electricity siya or parehas ba siya or dili kay nagbutang-butang pag lahi-lahi na journal entry, di ba? You have to be consistent with that as well. No, it can be pwede naman pero lisod na kay siya. Maglisod na pud si accountant, mangita na pud siya og description or notes na pud na mo dinhi nga ni mangayon na pud siya resibo para mas paspas ang trabaho. Of course, na consistency dapat. Okay? So that's it. Actually, those are the principles and the concepts as well. If you have any questions again, please feel free to just, chat sa Messenger or chat sa MS Teams within the right time as well. Pud class ha, dili nang mag-class, mag-chat o kanang alas 4, alas 3. Pero if in emergency siya, okay lang. Pero I would highly advise you guys to always chat during the right time. Okay? Or pa-email na lang ninyo. Pero ayaw ng email ko, chat. What else? I will be uploading again, just for a reminder, ma-upload lang si quiz on today, February 22. Okay? So check it out. So again, I will be reiterating this again and again and again. Pag wala mo nagbutang dito or you're not inside the Quipper class, of course, dili jud mo part sa quiz. Usually, ang tendency ana mo chat jud mo by the end of the grading period naman na. May na mo, sir, wala man may kabalo na quiz. Again, it's not my problem anymore. Kay kapila naman jud ako nagibalik-balik. If you do not come in class, then that's your problem. Honestly, magpa-char-char na ta diri na moingon tag kuan lang na okay lang na dili jud na okay, no? Again, it's your responsibility na mag-apas jud mo na sa inyong mga lacking, ha. So that's it, no? I'll be uploading this on YouTube. Check it out. And then that's it. Goodbye everyone. And I hope you have a good day ahead of you.